You ever see a picture that changes your whole life in 1 second? That's what happened to me. One moment, I was massaging a billionaire's shoulders in a penthouse suite overlooking downtown LA, the same way I've done for years. Calm, focused, breathing steady. And then, in the middle of a casual conversation, he turned his phone toward me and said, "Check her out, this is the woman I've been seeing. I think I'm in love, man." And there she was. Smiling. Wearing the dress I bought her last Christmas. Holding a wine glass in one hand and this man's arm in the other. It was my wife. Let me back up. My name's Marcus. I'm 34 years old. I've been a massage therapist since I was 15. Started out giving chair massages at the local gym just to help my mom pay rent. Then I started learning everything I could: deep tissue, sports recovery, lymphatic drainage, you name it. I worked my way up from cheap spas and sweaty locker rooms to private appointments for celebrities and CEOs. I built a reputation for discretion and hands that melt stress like butter, as one client once said. Now, I make more in a week than I used to in a month. I've got a beautiful wife, Sophia, and a 4-year-old son named Caleb. I thought I had everything. We live in a 3-bedroom house just outside Culver City. Not a mansion, but it's ours. We've got backyard barbecues on Sundays, movie nights on Fridays, and sleepy kisses in the mornings. Or we did, at least. The past few months, Sophia's been different. Distant. She says she's tired. Always tired. That's why she's going to bed early. Why she doesn't want to cuddle. Why she's been too busy to come to my client parties or even visit my mom with me and Caleb. I chalked it up to motherhood, stress, hormones, whatever excuse helped me sleep at night. But I knew something was off. Still, I didn't expect that. It happened on a Thursday. I had a new client, Ethan Crowley. He's a 50-something finance guy who just sold a tech startup for an ungodly amount of money. Real alpha energy. Tanned, loud laugh, always talking like he's got the inside scoop on the world. His assistant booked me for a 90-minute deep tissue at his penthouse. Standard gig. We made some small talk while I set up the table and oils. He asked if I did any work for celebrities. I nodded, keeping it vague like I always do. He laughed and said, "Man, I bet you hear all kinds of secrets in this line of work." "You'd be surprised what people let slip when they're relaxed," I said. He chuckled. Then, 15 minutes in, while I was working on his back, he said, "You know what's funny? I met this woman at a charity event last month. Absolute stunner. I'm talking dream girl level. Gorgeous. Smart. Sexy as hell. We've been seeing each other on the low." I gave a polite, "Oh yeah," and kept working. Then he added, "Here, let me show you. You're gonna appreciate this. She's your type, trust me." He reached for his phone, scrolled for a second, and then held it up over his shoulder. I glanced without thinking. And that's when my heart stopped. It was Sophia. Clear as day. Her hair curled just the way she likes for events. That little necklace I got her for our anniversary. Her hand resting on his chest. My fingers froze on his back. "You good, man?" he asked. I faked a cough. "Yeah, just, sorry. Got a cramp in my hand. Happens sometimes." I made a joke of it. Smiled through the nausea. Forced my hands to keep moving while my brain screamed. Inside, I was crumbling. The rest of the session was a blur. I got through it on autopilot, muscle memory, polite answers, professional charm. The second I left his penthouse, I sat in my car for 10 minutes just staring out the windshield. I didn't even cry. I just sat there. Frozen. How long had this been going on? Was that why she'd been so distant? Had she fallen out of love with me? Or was it just about the money? That night, I didn't say anything to Sophia. I came home, gave Caleb his bath, kissed her on the cheek, and pretended everything was normal. I watched her laugh at a show on Netflix like nothing was wrong. I kept staring at her phone on the coffee table. I knew I shouldn't. But when she stepped into the kitchen to get popcorn, I picked it up. Face ID didn't work, of course. I didn't know her passcode. But part of me wondered, how many other things didn't I know? She came back and caught me holding it. Her face changed instantly. "Why are you on my phone?" I froze. It buzzed. Thought it might be something about Caleb's daycare. She narrowed her eyes but didn't say anything else. That was when I knew. She was hiding something. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe. I kept replaying the image in my mind, her hand on Ethan's chest. The way he smiled like he'd won some prize. I didn't sleep a minute. The next day, I went to work like usual. I had a session with one of my longtime clients, Sharon, a retired producer who treats me like her third son. About halfway through, she looked at me and said, "You're not yourself today, Marcus. Everything okay?" I tried to brush it off. "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." But something in me cracked. I told her everything. Well, not everything, I didn't name names. But I told her what happened. About the photo. About the men. About my wife. She listened quietly, then said, "Sweetheart, don't let this sit and rot. If you don't confront it, it'll eat you alive." And she was right. I needed to know the truth. That night, I made up my mind. After Caleb went to bed, I sat down across from Sophia at the kitchen table. She was scrolling through her phone, looking peaceful, like nothing in the world could bother her. I said, "Sophia, we need to talk." She looked up. "Okay, what's going on?" My voice was calm. Too calm. "I had a new client yesterday. He showed me a photo of the woman he's been seeing." She raised an eyebrow. "Okay." I leaned in. "It was you, Sophia." Her face went pale. For a moment, the silence was so loud I could hear the refrigerator humming. Then she said, softly, "Marcus. I can explain." But I stopped her. "Don't lie to me. Not now." She opened her mouth to speak, then froze. Her eyes welled with tears. But she didn't deny it. She didn't say anything. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. There's a moment, right after the truth cracks open, where time slows down. You think you'll scream, demand answers, throw things. But all I did was stare at her. And all she did was cry. Sophia sat there, tears dripping silently onto her lap, unable to look me in the eye. I wanted to shake her, yell, "Why him? Why anyone?" But my voice was buried beneath a mountain of disbelief. I finally said, "How long?" She wiped her face and whispered, 3 months. 3 months. While I was taking extra shifts to pay for Caleb's preschool. While I was skipping sleep to make sure she had time for yoga, for brunch with friends, for whatever she wanted. She was with him. I leaned back in my chair. The kitchen light above us felt too bright, too warm, like it didn't belong to the scene. "Why?" I asked. Not angrily. Just lost. "Why him?" She hesitated. Then, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't plan it." "They never do," I muttered. She reached across the table, but I flinched. She pulled her hand back. "I met him at that charity gala you skipped," she said. "The one I went to with Vanessa." "Right. The night she wore that green dress, the one she hadn't worn since. She came home that night glowing. I thought it was the wine." "Guess not." Sophia continued, "He came up to me like I was the only person in the room. Said I was stunning. Said I had energy, like light. I hadn't heard words like that in a long time." I stared at her. "So it was my fault?" "No. I'm not blaming you. I'm telling you how I felt." She looked away. "I love you, Marcus. But after Caleb was born, we stopped being us. You were always tired. Always working. I felt invisible." I shook my head slowly. "So your solution was to sleep with a billionaire behind my back?" "I didn't sleep with him right away," she said. "It started with texting. Then dinners. Then," she trailed off. "That night I said I was staying with Vanessa. I closed my eyes. I remember that night. Caleb had a fever. I stayed up with him. Alone. She came back late and barely kissed me goodnight. Did you ever think about Caleb? I asked, my voice cracking. About what this would do to him. Tears spilled again. Every single day. But I didn't believe her. Not in that moment. Because if she really thought about Caleb, she would have stopped herself before it ever began. The next few days were numb. We coexisted. We still had to be parents. Still had to pack lunches, do story time, smile around our son. But behind the scenes, we barely spoke. I slept on the couch. She didn't ask me to come back. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mom. Not my best friend, Trey. Because once you say it out loud, it becomes real. And I wasn't ready for that. But I couldn't stop thinking about him, Ethan Crowley. Rich. Charismatic. Powerful. Of course he could seduce someone like Sophia. He had everything I didn't. And I'd been massaging him. Touching the body of the men who took my wife. The humiliation burned in a place deeper than rage. One night, after putting Caleb to bed, I stepped outside to sit on the porch. I scrolled through my client list on my phone. I wanted to cancel Ethan. Block him. Walk away. But a part of me, one I wasn't proud of, wanted to see him again. I needed to look him in the eye. I needed to see if he knew I was her husband. If he enjoyed it. That opportunity came 3 days later. His assistant texted me, "Ethan's asking for you this Saturday. Noon. Same place." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied, "Confirmed." Sophia was in the kitchen making tea when I told her. "I'm seeing him this weekend." She looked up, eyes wide. "You're going back? I want to know what kind of man he really is." She opened her mouth like she wanted to stop me. But she didn't. Maybe she knew she didn't have the right. Maybe she was scared of what I'd find. Saturday arrived. I drove to the penthouse, hands shaking on the wheel. When he opened the door, Ethan greeted me like nothing had happened. "Marcus, my man. Come in." No idea. Or pretending he had none. I unpacked my table, forced a smile, and asked him how his week had been. He said, "Great. That woman I told you about. Things are getting serious." I paused. "Oh yeah." He nodded. "She's married, though. Complicated situation. But I think she's going to leave him soon. She said she's never felt more alive." I clenched my jaw. Then he said, "You ever fall so hard for someone that you're willing to fight for them, no matter what?" I couldn't stop myself. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Depends. Are you fighting for her or fighting to destroy her life?" His brow furrowed. "What?" I leaned closer. "The woman you're in love with. Sophia." He froze. "Yeah. She's my wife." His face turned ghostly pale. The silence stretched. "Then, I didn't know. She said she was separated. Did you ever ask?" He sat back. "No." I packed up my bag. Slowly. "No hard feelings, huh?" he said awkwardly. "It's complicated. I mean, love is messy." I turned at the door. "No. Lying is messy. Love is supposed to be honest." And I walked out. Back home, I found Sophia on the couch, staring at her phone. I sat down across from her. "He didn't know," I said. She didn't look up. "He thought we were separated." "You told him that?" She finally whispered. I didn't want him to back off. My heart snapped clean in two. "You wanted to keep both of us." She buried her face in her hands. I didn't know what I wanted. I stood. "Well, now I do." She looked up. Eyes wide. "You're leaving?" I nodded. "Not just yet. Not before we figure out how to tell Caleb. But yeah. I'm not staying with someone who looks me in the eye and lies to protect a fantasy." Tears streamed down her cheeks. I never wanted to lose you. Then you shouldn't have gambled me away. I walked into the hallway. Behind me, I heard her sobbing. But I didn't go back. Not this time. Later that night, I lay next to Caleb, listening to his soft breaths. He rolled over in his sleep and whispered, "Daddy." "I'm here," I said. And I was. But part of me was already gone. You think you can shield a child from heartbreak? That if you whisper behind closed doors and smile at breakfast, the truth will stay tucked away, hidden beneath cartoons and bedtime stories. But Caleb, he's smarter than I ever gave him credit for. And I'll never forget the look in his eyes when he asked me, "Daddy, why don't you love mommy anymore?" It had been 2 weeks since I found out. 2 weeks of awkward silences and tiptoeing around the truth. Sophia and I agreed not to say anything to Caleb until we figured things out. We told ourselves we were doing it for him. But really, we were buying time. Time to avoid the guilt. Time to avoid decisions. I moved into the guest room. It was small, barely enough space for the fold-out couch and a pile of my clothes, but it felt like a border, a line between who we used to be and who we were now. I kept working. Clients noticed something was off, but I blamed it on lack of sleep. And Sophia, she was trying. Cooking my favorite meals. Laughing louder than usual. Offering to do more with Caleb. It all felt rehearsed. Like she was trying to audition for forgiveness. But I couldn't forget. I'd seen that photo. Seen the way she looked at him. One Saturday morning, I was making pancakes when Caleb walked into the kitchen, dragging his stuffed dinosaur behind him. His eyes were sleepy, hair sticking up in every direction. He climbed onto a stool and watched me flip the pancakes. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Daddy, why don't you sleep in mommy's bed anymore?" My hands froze. The spatula hovered in midair. I glanced at him, trying to play it cool. "What do you mean, buddy? You sleep in the small room now. I heard you and mommy talking at night. You said you might leave." My heart sank. He was only 4. How could he understand all this? But kids don't need details. They feel everything. I set the spatula down and turned to face him. He looked so serious, his tiny hands gripping the edge of the counter. "I love mommy," he said. "And I love you. I don't want anyone to leave." I knelt beside him, tears already stinging my eyes. "Hey. No matter what happens, we both love you more than anything. Okay." He nodded slowly, but his eyes stayed fixed on mine. "Are you mad at mommy?" I swallowed hard. "I'm hurt. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. Big ones. And it takes time to figure out what to do next." "Are you gonna stop being my daddy?" he whispered. That broke me. I pulled him into my arms and held him like I did when he was a baby. "I will always be your daddy. Nothing can ever change that." That night, I told Sophia we couldn't wait anymore. "He knows," I said. "He heard us." She looked devastated. I never wanted him to get caught in this. Then we should have handled it differently from the start. We sat on the couch and tried to plan the impossible, how to tell a 4-year-old his family was breaking in two. We agreed not to assign blame. Not yet. He didn't need to know everything. Just enough to feel safe. It was the hardest conversation I've ever had. We told him Daddy might get a new place soon. That sometimes mommies and daddies stop being together, but they never stop loving their kids. He asked if he could have 2 birthday parties. We said yes. He asked if his dinosaur could go back and forth with him. We said of course. Then he asked, "Will mommy still kiss you goodbye in the morning?" And neither of us knew what to say. The next day, I went apartment hunting. Not seriously, just browsing online. But it made it real. I looked at tiny 1-bedroom places with gray carpets and bad lighting. Places that smelled like someone else's past. Places that didn't feel like home. And the whole time, I kept thinking, how did we get here? We were supposed to grow old together. Watch Caleb graduate, then retire near a beach. I gave her everything I had. Why wasn't it enough? That night, I got a text. Unknown number. I didn't know she was married. I swear. I backed off. I hope you believe that. It was Ethan. I stared at the message for a long time. He didn't owe me anything. And I didn't want to talk to him. But part of me needed to know. So I replied. Me. How far did it go? A minute later. Ethan. It wasn't just physical. She talked about you. Said you were a good man. Said she hated herself for hurting you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. She still talked about me. Even while being with him. What kind of twisted love was that? The next day, I came home early from a cancelled appointment. I walked into the house, expecting silence. Instead, I heard Sophia's voice in the backyard. I peeked through the window. She was on the phone. Smiling. Laughing. And then I heard her say his name. Ethan. It was like a knife through my ribs. I walked back out to the car without a word. Sat behind the wheel and gripped it like it could hold me together. So much for her cutting things off. That night, I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. I just asked, "Are you still talking to him?" She froze. Then nodded. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I miss him." That was it. No more pretending. No more maybe. We were over. I told her I'd start packing on Monday. She didn't fight me. Didn't beg. She just cried. But I was done crying for her. I wasn't perfect. But I was faithful. And I deserved better than being someone's plan B. Later that night, Caleb crawled into my bed in the guest room. He nestled beside me and whispered, "Can you hold me?" I wrapped my arms around him, tears falling silently into his hair. We stayed like that for a long time. Both of us trying to pretend this was just another night. Another bedtime cuddle. But we both knew. Our world had changed. And tomorrow would be the first day of something new. Moving out felt like walking away from my own skin. I stood in the middle of our bedroom, staring at the closet we once shared, the framed wedding photo still hanging above the dresser, and I thought, how did we get here? It wasn't the betrayal that gutted me the most. It was that I couldn't picture who we were anymore. Sophia didn't cry when I packed. Not until she saw me put Caleb's drawing, the one with stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, me, and Dino, into my bag. Then she turned away and wiped her face. I didn't say anything. What was there left to say? I found a small apartment about 10 minutes away. One bedroom, decent light, quiet neighbors, and just enough space for Caleb's weekend visits. It smelled like fresh paint and loneliness. I bought a second-hand couch, a twin bed, a cheap coffee maker, and a rug that didn't quite fit the floor. It wasn't home. But it was a place to start over. The first night I spent there, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every argument we never had. Every word I should have said before someone else stepped into the space I left empty. Sophia and I worked out a schedule. I'd have Caleb every other weekend and one weekday evening. I hated that it came to that, scheduling time with my son like I was booking a client. When I picked Caleb up for the first time, he held my hand the whole way to the car. "Do you have snacks at your new place?" he asked. "I've got your favorite, fruit snacks and chocolate chip cookies." He smiled. "Does my dinosaur have a bed?" "Right next to yours." He nodded like that made everything okay. But when he saw the apartment, he looked around quietly. "Where's Mommy's stuff?" I crouched down. "This is just Daddy's place. Mommy has her house, and this is ours." He blinked up at me. "So now I have two homes." I nodded. "That's right." "Cool." Then he ran over to the tiny couch and flopped onto it like he owned the place. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the bed and scrolled through old photos on my phone. Sophia holding Caleb in the hospital. Us at the beach. One blurry selfie of her sitting on my lap, laughing like the world didn't matter. I almost deleted them. But I couldn't. Not yet. A few days later, something strange happened. I came home from a client appointment and found a manila envelope wedged under my door. No name. No return address. Inside were photographs. Of Sophia. With Ethan. But not just the ones I'd seen before. These were private. Intimate moments. Them holding hands in public. Kissing outside a hotel. One of her in a car with him, wearing sunglasses and laughing. They weren't grainy. They weren't accidental. Someone had followed them. At the bottom of the stack was a note. You deserve to know the full story. No signature. No explanation. I stared at the pictures, heart pounding. Who sent this? Why now? Was someone trying to help me, or hurt her? I didn't call Sophia. I didn't want to hear her voice. Instead, I called Trey, my oldest friend. He'd been asking to meet up for weeks, ever since he sensed something was off. I guess I just wasn't ready to talk about it until now. We met at a diner we used to hang out at in college. Same cracked leather booths. Same greasy fries. I slid the photos across the table. He looked through them slowly, then leaned back. Damn. I told him everything about the client, the photo, the confession, the move. He listened without interrupting. When I was done, he exhaled like he'd been holding his breath the whole time. You think she's still seeing him? He asked. I nodded. She didn't stop. Even after I found out. Even after she said she was sorry. She ever say she loved him? She never said it. But I saw it in the way she talked about him. There was something there. Trey shook his head. Man, I'm sorry. That's brutal. I picked at my fries. I'm not angry anymore. Just tired. Just trying to figure out who I am without her. He looked me in the eye. You were someone long before her, bro. You just forgot. On the way home, I kept thinking about the envelope. What kind of person stalks a couple and sends photos to the husband? Was it Ethan's wife, if he had one? A private investigator? The idea that someone had been watching my family made my skin crawl. But worse, it made me realize how far I'd fallen. When you start digging through betrayal, you uncover rot in places you never expected. That weekend, Caleb came over again. We went to the park, ate grilled cheese sandwiches, and built a fort in the living room out of couch cushions. At one point, he looked at me and said, I like it here. I smiled. Yeah. It's quiet. That hit me harder than it should have. He was 4. But he already understood that silence could be a gift. Something peaceful. Something safe. On Sunday night, I drove him back to Sophia's. When she opened the door, she looked tired. We didn't say much. Just exchanged the usual, backpack, snacks, reminders. But then she said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" I nodded and stepped inside. She closed the door and lowered her voice. I don't know how else to say this, but he ended it. Ethan. I blinked. What? He said it was too messy. Too complicated. Said he didn't want to be the reason a family broke up. I just stared at her. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She looked away. Because. I don't know what happens now. I don't know how to be alone. That's not my problem anymore, I said quietly. She flinched. I know. I deserve that. Then she added, but I do want to fix what I can. Especially for Caleb. I nodded. Start by being honest. With him. With yourself. Back at my place, I sat alone with a beer and the photos. I looked at them one last time. Then I lit a match and dropped them into the sink. I didn't want to be the man who needed proof to justify his pain. I already knew the truth. And now, I had to learn how to live with it. The next chapter of my life hadn't started yet. But for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. Even if it was just the quiet kind. You think once the truth comes out, the story ends. But it doesn't. The hardest part isn't uncovering the lies. It's figuring out what to do after they've been spoken. How to live in the same world where everything you believed was real, wasn't. It had been nearly a month since I moved out. Caleb had adjusted faster than I expected. He called my apartment the small house and loved the fact that he didn't have to share the bathroom. Me. I was still adjusting to the quiet. Then one Wednesday night, while I was folding laundry and half watching a basketball game on mute, I got a text from Sophia. "Can we talk? Just us. Please." I stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But a bigger part, the one that still held years of memories, late-night laughs, whispered plans, weighed heavier. I typed back. "Tomorrow. After I drop Caleb off." The next morning, I brought Caleb home after our usual pancake breakfast and dinosaur-themed story time. Sophia opened the door with her hair pulled up and a nervous look on her face. Caleb ran inside and immediately started showing her the sticker he got at the grocery store. She looked at me and nodded toward the backyard. I followed her out to the small deck where we used to drink coffee on Sunday mornings. The moment the door shut behind us, she turned to me. "I owe you the full story," she said. I didn't say anything. Just waited. She sat on the bench and took a deep breath. Ethan wasn't the first. The words hit like a slap across the face. I blinked, trying to process. What? I finally managed. There was someone else. A while ago. Before Ethan. It didn't last long. I stopped it before it turned physical, but the emotional part. It was there. I didn't tell you because I thought I could move past it. I told myself it didn't count. I leaned against the railing, trying to stay upright. You lied to my face. Repeatedly. And now you want credit for the one you didn't sleep with. She winced. I know how it sounds. But I wasn't happy, Marcus. And I didn't know how to tell you without blowing everything up. I shook my head. So instead, you just slowly poisoned what we had. You built an escape hatch instead of trying to fix what was broken. She stood and started pacing. I felt invisible, Marcus. You were always working. Always tired. You never looked at me like you used to. You never touched me like you used to. And instead of talking to me, you found someone else to make you feel seen. I snapped. You think I wasn't tired? I was out there every day, working myself into the ground to make sure you and Caleb had everything. I didn't cheat when I felt neglected. I showed up. Her eyes filled with tears. I know. I know you did. That's what makes this worse. For a long time, we just stood there. Her crying quietly. Me trying not to fall apart. Finally, she asked the question I knew was coming. Do you think there's any part of us left that's worth saving? I looked at her. The woman I married. The mother of my son. The woman who broke my heart, twice. And I told her the truth. I don't know. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was that there were two men. Two separate betrayals. What did that say about me? What did it say about us? And if I walked away for good, was I giving up too easily? Or was I finally choosing myself for once? The next day, I called Trey. We met at the same diner. I didn't even wait for the fries to hit the table. She told me there was someone else, I said. Before Ethan. He whistled. Damn, man. She really out here collecting trophies, huh? It wasn't physical, supposedly. But it doesn't matter. It was still betrayal. Trey leaned forward. Let me ask you something. If she begged you right now to take her back, no games, no secrets, could you do it? I hesitated. That pause said more than I wanted it to. That's what I thought, he said. You're still hooked. But you don't trust her. I nodded. I want to forgive her. For Caleb's sake. For the life we built. But I can't go back to pretending. Then don't, he said. Forgive her if you need to. But move forward. Not back. A few nights later, Sophia called me again. I almost didn't answer. But when I picked up, her voice was quiet. "There's something you should know. Ethan came by the house." I sat up. "What?" "He showed up unannounced. Said he wanted to talk. Said he made a mistake. And I told him to leave. I told him I was trying to make things right with you and that I didn't want to see him again." "Are you trying to win points right now?" I asked. "No," she said. I wanted you to know where I stand. For the first time, maybe I'm actually standing in the right place." The following weekend, Caleb came to stay with me again. He ran in like usual, dropped his backpack, and pulled out a drawing. "This is you, me, and Mommy at the zoo," he said. I looked at it. All three of us holding hands. Smiling. Like we were whole again. He looked up at me. "Are we gonna go back to living together soon?" I knelt beside him and said the hardest thing I've ever had to say. "No, buddy. We're not." He frowned. "Why not?" "Because sometimes, even when people love each other, they hurt each other too much to go back." He looked at me for a long time. Then he hugged me and whispered, "I still love you both." And in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. Or even a perfect ending. I just needed peace. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, I wrote Sophia a letter. "Sophia, I forgive you. Not because I forget what you did, but because I need to move on without bitterness. We both made mistakes, but yours cut deep. You lied. You hid pieces of yourself from me. And it changed everything. But I'm choosing peace. For Caleb. For me. Maybe even for you. I don't hate you. But I can't come back to you. That part of our story is over. Marcus." I folded it, sealed it in an envelope, and dropped it off the next morning. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Some things are better left unsaid. And for the first time since all this began, I felt free. Not happy. Not healed. But free. I used to think being a good father meant providing. Paying the bills. Showing up. Protecting. But after everything that happened, I realized. Being a father is less about what you give. And more about how you stay. Even when it hurts. Even when everything else falls apart. And that truth hit me hardest the night Caleb asked me, "Daddy, are you ever gonna love someone again?" We were sitting on the floor of my apartment, building a Lego spaceship with pieces that didn't belong together. A wing from one box, the cockpit from another, a mismatched laser cannon I improvised out of a pencil cap. It wasn't perfect. But Caleb loved it. Said it was the fastest spaceship in the universe. Then he got quiet. His hand still holding a tiny blue block. He didn't look at me when he asked the question. Like maybe he was afraid of the answer. I blinked. It came out of nowhere. Or maybe it had been building in him for weeks. "Why do you ask, buddy?" I said softly. He shrugged. "Just wondering. Mommy's been sad lately. And I don't want you to be sad too." I looked at him. 4 years old. Trying to carry emotions that didn't belong to him. I scooped him into my arms. "I'm okay, Caleb. I really am. And one day, yeah, I might love someone again. But right now, I just want to be the best daddy I can be. That's my only job." He nodded slowly, then whispered, "Can I still come even if you get a girlfriend?" I laughed through a lump in my throat. "You'll always be the number one man in my life. That's never changing." He smiled and leaned into me. And in that moment, I didn't miss anything or anyone. Not even Sophia. Because I knew exactly where I was supposed to be. Over the next few weeks, the rhythm of our new life began to settle. I picked Caleb up from preschool, helped with messy crafts, learned to braid Play-Doh hair, and made box mac and cheese like it was gourmet cuisine. Sophia and I texted only when necessary. Drop-off times. Doctor visits. It was cordial. Distant. And that was okay. We weren't friends. We weren't enemies. We were parents. That had to be enough. One afternoon, while Caleb was with Sophia, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Sharon, a long-time client. One of the few people who'd noticed my quiet unraveling but hadn't pushed. "Marcus, darling," she said in her elegant rasp, "I have someone I want you to meet." I almost rolled my eyes. "I'm not really looking to date right now." "Oh no, sweetheart. Not like that. This is professional. She's opening a wellness studio in Santa Monica. Massage therapy, acupuncture, yoga. She's looking for someone trustworthy. Someone healing." That last word sat heavy in the air. Healing. I hadn't thought of myself like that in months. "Just meet her," Sharon said. "1 cup of coffee. That's all." The woman's name was Ava. She had warm eyes, a soft voice, and a kind of grounded energy that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. We met at a cafe near the beach. She didn't ask about my resume. She asked about why I do what I do. And for the first time in a long while, I talked about it without bitterness. "I started when I was a kid," I told her. "Massaging my mom's back after long shifts." It made her smile when nothing else could. "I guess. I liked making people feel safe in their own bodies." Ava nodded. "That's exactly what we need. I'd love to have you on board." And just like that, something new began. Not just a job. A purpose. A small door opening toward the next chapter. The studio wasn't open yet, so we met a few times to plan treatment menus, schedule bookings, and design the space. And during those meetings, I learned about Ava's past too. Divorced. No kids. Moved to LA after her mother passed. She didn't ask about Sophia. Didn't push. Just listened. One night, after a long meeting, she looked at me and said, "You carry a lot of pain, Marcus. But I don't think it's who you are. I think it's what you've survived." That hit me harder than I expected. Because for so long, I'd let my pain define me. The betrayal. The shame. The loss. I forgot there was anything else left. Later that week, Sophia called. Not a text. Not about Caleb. "Hey," she said quietly. "Do you think we could get coffee sometime? Not for us. For closure." I hesitated. Then said, "Okay." We met at a cafe downtown, one we used to go to before Caleb was born. It felt weird sitting across from her like two strangers trying to remember who they used to be. She wore no makeup. Looked tired, but softer somehow. "I'm in therapy," she said. "I've been going weekly." I nodded. "That's good." "I'm not calling to ask for another chance," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you. For not turning Caleb against me. For being better than I was." I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the truth. "I've had to work hard to not hate you, Sophia. And sometimes I still struggle. But Caleb doesn't deserve bitterness. He deserves peace." Tears filled her eyes. "He told me you're building a spaceship. Said you make the best pancakes." I smiled. "We try." Then she said something I didn't expect. "If you ever meet someone new, I hope she's good to you. Really. You deserve to be seen." It was the first time I believed she meant it. Weeks passed. The studio opened. Clients came in, tired mothers, burnt-out executives, athletes nursing old injuries. And for the first time in months, I felt useful again. Whole. Ava and I became friends. Nothing more. But sometimes, when we locked up late at night, I'd catch her smiling at me in a way that felt patient. Like she wasn't waiting for something. Just noticing. And that was enough. One night, after Caleb fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon, I carried him to bed and tucked him in. He stirred, half asleep, and whispered, "Love you, Daddy." I kissed his forehead. "I love you too, buddy. Always." Then I sat by the window, looking out over the quiet street, and let the stillness wash over me. My story wasn't tied to Sophia anymore. Not to Ethan. Not even to the betrayal. My story was still unfolding, slowly, quietly. Like a bruise fading. Like a wound healing. Like a man finally learning who he is when no one's watching. Sometimes, the deepest healing happens quietly. Not in grand speeches or dramatic endings. But in the stillness of an ordinary afternoon. When you realize you're no longer angry. When you wake up and your first thought isn't about what was taken from you. But what you still have. And that's how I knew I was finally okay. It had been nearly 6 months since I left the house I once called home. Since I said goodbye to the woman I once promised forever. Since I'd rebuilt a life I never asked to start over. But this time, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about becoming someone new. Someone who still believed in love. Even if it looked different now. That morning, Caleb and I were walking through a local farmer's market. He was holding a strawberry smoothie in one hand and dragging me toward a stand with honey sticks in the other. "I want the orange one," he said, pointing eagerly. "Orange isn't a flavor, buddy. That's just the color." He looked up at me, suspicious. "Then why is it orange?" I laughed. "Fair point." We bought 3. All orange. As we walked away, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Marcus." I turned. Ava. Wearing sunglasses, holding a tote bag of vegetables, and smiling like she hadn't just caught me in full dad mode. Caleb peeked up at her. She smiled at him. "Hi there." He smiled back but said nothing, shy like he always was around new people. "This is Ava," I told him. "She's the lady I work with." He gave her a small wave. "Hi." Ava crouched down to his level. "Nice to meet you, Caleb. I've heard you build some pretty awesome spaceships." His eyes lit up. "They have lasers now." She gasped. "Well, then. That's serious." We walked together for a while, the 3 of us. It felt easy. Natural. Not forced like I worried it would be. And for the first time, I let myself wonder. What if this wasn't just friendship anymore? That night, after I dropped Caleb off at Sophia's, I found myself staring at my phone longer than usual. A message typed and deleted. Typed again. Eventually, I hit send. Me. Coffee. Just us this time. No work talk. A minute later, she replied. "Ava. Thought you'd never ask." We met at a small coffee shop 2 blocks from the studio. A place with old wood floors and the smell of cinnamon and espresso soaked into the walls. She wore her hair down. No makeup. No rush. When I saw her, I smiled without thinking. And it felt good. We sat across from each other. Not as coworkers. Not as survivors of something broken. But 2 people who had quietly grown into each other. She looked me in the eye and said, "You've changed." I tilted my head. "How so?" "You're lighter. Like something heavy finally let go of you." I nodded. "I think I stopped trying to rewrite the past. And just started living the present." She smiled. "That's a good place to start." Over the next few weeks, we began seeing more of each other. Not every day. Not rushed. Just, slowly. She met Caleb a few more times, always kind, never intrusive. She never tried to mother him. She just listened, asked questions, made him laugh. And I watched him open up to her, little by little. And I felt my own heart do the same. One evening, Sophia texted. "Sophia. Can we talk?" I hesitated. Then replied. "Me. About." "Sophia. I just need to say something. Face to face. Please." We met at a nearby park, on a bench under a row of quiet trees. Caleb was with Trey that evening. She looked different. Not sad. Not desperate. Just, reflective. "I'm not trying to pull you back," she said quickly. "I know that part's done. And it should be." I waited. "I just wanted to say thank you. For everything you've done for Caleb. For not using him as a weapon. For not trashing me to him, even when I know I deserved it. I looked at her, quiet. She continued, I've been working on myself. I know I have a long way to go. But the therapist said I need to start making peace with people I hurt. So, this is that. I nodded. Thank you for saying it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she added softly, is it her? The woman from the studio. I nodded. It's not serious yet. But it's good. She smiled sadly. I'm glad. I hope she sees the version of you I was too blind to hold on to. Driving home that night, I didn't feel guilt. Or bitterness. I felt closure. Like a door had quietly shut behind me. No slam. No anger. Just the end of a chapter. A few weeks later, Caleb and I were walking through the park when he said, Daddy, are you gonna marry Ava someday? I laughed, surprised. That's a big question, buddy. She makes good grilled cheese, he said seriously. And she doesn't talk loud like mommy when she's mad. I smiled. Well, we'll see. It's still early. He looked up at me. Can I still be your best friend if you get married again? I knelt beside him. You will always be my best friend. You were here first, remember? He giggled. Okay. But I get to keep the top bunk if we get a new house. Deal. And maybe that was the biggest victory of all. Not finding love again. Not moving on. But learning how to live a life that felt honest. A life built on truth. On peace. On showing up, even when it's hard. Because love isn't just about staying. It's about staying with the right intention. With the right person. With your whole heart. One night, Ava and I sat out on her balcony, watching the sun disappear behind the city. She turned to me and said, You're not the same man I met 6 months ago. I smiled. No. I'm better. She leaned her head on my shoulder. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man picking up broken pieces. I felt whole. And it started. The day everything fell apart.